Hello art friends, Melisa here, and today I'm back with another video for my Index Card a Week series. I'll be using products from Darkroom Door. They are another one of those fabulous stores I ran across when we were social isolating. I've shared before that I've done most of my shopping for art supplies from Hobby Lobby and Michael's the last few years. When I was out of work for 6 weeks and social isolating, I started searching for other options, and Darkroom Door and Simon Says Stamp are two of those stores that I found. If you like any of the products I'm using today, you can find them at darkroomdoor.com or at Simon Says Stamp. I'll start today showing you how I created my backgrounds using my gel plate. And I'll be doing some more of the mark making style this week as well. I went back and forth between the cards while creating them, but then I thought the video would be better if I showed you how to create them one at a time. So that means the transitions are not always smooth, so sorry about that. All right, so let me show you the products from Darkroom Door that I used to create today's trading cards. I used 4 stencils. This one's called Large Circles, and this is Small Circles. This is Small Polka Dots, and this one's called Creativity, and I really love this one. It's got a lot of great words on it. I used 3 stamp sets. This one's called Paint Brushes. This is Paint Tubes, and this one is Numbers Medley. I love adding numbers to my projects, sometimes to add texture to the background, but also because they usually provide contrast and interest to whatever my focal point or other elements I'm using are. So if you don't already own a set of numbers, I recommend this one. I love how eclectic the numbers are. Some of them are round, some of them look distressed. One line of numbers is straight, another one is crooked. And I love the smaller ledger style images, perfect for backgrounds. The first 2 paints I'm applying are Artist Loft professional level paints, but you can use any brand of acrylic paints on your gel plate. The first color is the Brilliant Yellow Green, and now I'm coming in with some teal. The third color I'm going to use is Liquitex Brilliant Purple. Notice I'm applying it with a foam brush. That's because I'm trying to control where the purple goes on to avoid the green. I've played with these 2 colors before and they don't play well together. I'll show you a few muddy spots when I pull the second print, but this is just the first layer, so no worries. I've mentioned before I'm no gel plate expert, so I'll post links in the description box below the video to other YouTube channels where you can get more information. There are 2 ways of pulling a print. The first one is to pull it right away when the paint is still wet, which is what I'm doing right now. This is not the print I'm looking for. The other way to pull a print would be used if you waited too long and let your paint dry, or you let the paint dry on purpose because you wanted to add more layers. In this instance, after the paint is completely dried, you would coat the entire plate with a thin layer of white or another color if you'd like. Next, you apply your paper, wait a few minutes, and then pull your print. And here's where the purple and the green mixed together and made mud. While we're waiting to pull this print, let me just say that if you enjoy making 3x5 art cards, I would love to swap with you. Check the description box below the video. Just click the Show More button to find links to supplies, my email address, and a link to my Index Card of the Week playlist for more inspiration. Off camera, I applied some black paint to my gel plate, like you see me do with the teal, and pulled it to get a grungier look. Then I stenciled on some black paint using the polka dot stencil. I trimmed my prints down to 3 inches by 5 inches, which is the size of an index card. I'm using a waterproof ink to stencil the words on each of the cards. And later you'll see me use various pens to connect the gaps in the letters. I think my Posca acrylic paint pen ended up being my favorite. Sometimes I use a fine tip Sharpie or a Sharpie pen. If you use one of those, you have to be very careful though and wipe the tip off frequently because they will clog. So this background had lots of color, and after I stenciled the word on, I realized it needed some white to break that up. I still had my stencils laying out, so I grabbed one of those and decided to stamp with it. I used super heavy gesso because I had that laying on my desk, but you could use white acrylic paint or regular gesso. I'm adding some smaller circles using a straw. I used an acrylic paint pen to doodle on my focal point. You guys, I won't have an Index Card of the Week video for you next Wednesday. I'm so excited because it will be my first official video for the Sean Petit creative team. And it's something different from what I've posted in the past, so I'm looking forward to hear how you guys like it. I'm using a black acrylic paint pen to draw these little rectangles. I'm applying black waterproof ink with a makeup brush. I am really loving these makeup brushes with stencils. I started out using a paint pen to apply the purple paint, but I really just didn't like the way it looked. It was a little dull, so I ended up brushing on some of the brilliant purple. I'm adding some dots to the little black boxes with a white acrylic pen to add some interest. I'm using a fine tip Posca black acrylic pen to connect the letters. The product number for this one is PC-1MR and it's a fine tip. Now I'm adding some white dashes with a white Posca acrylic pen to add more interest to the black squares. The black pen I used a while ago was more of a pen tip. This white one is more of a brush tip, but it is hard and it's very small. The product number is PC-1M if you're interested. I'm using my mini clothespin to make these little marks. I just dipped it in some black heavy body paint. And I guess you could easily do this with a paint pen. You don't necessarily need a clothespin to do this. It does keep the lines equally spaced though. I'm just adding some black doodle lines around those little white circles. I'm adding some white lines over my black lines and then doing some doodling around my focal point with a black pen. Now I'm just adding some little white dots. Let's move on to card number 2. The first card had a lot of color and needed some white. This card needs more color, so I started by pouncing on some green with the makeup sponge and then used the stencil to stamp on some purple. Again, I stenciled on my words with some waterproof ink and a makeup brush. I'm stamping on some white heavy gesso with the stencil, and then I'm going to apply it to a piece of corrugated cardboard and stamp with that. I'm using the straw again to create some tiny circles with the super heavy gesso. My focal point on this card is going to be those really cool paint tube and paintbrush stamps. I'm using a stamp positioning tool so I can stamp it more than once. This particular brand is Stamp Perfect. I stamp it the first time so I have some guidelines for applying my paint. Then I'm able to stamp it again in the exact same position over the paint. Now I'm still working on regular copy paper because that's how I started with the gel printing. But when I'm done with these, I'm going to adhere it to something sturdier, like some watercolor paper. Another option would be you could glue together a couple of index cards and then adhere it to that. After I'm done coloring and stamping, I'm going to cut these out. Just curious, I'm wondering where everyone who's viewing this video is from. If you don't mind, post a comment and let me know. I'm really interested in collecting cards from all over the world. So if you're interested in swapping, you can find my email address in the description box below the video. And now I'm just going to trim up the images and adhere them to the front of this card. After I connected the letters, I decided it needed a little more and added a couple more paint brushes and a paint tube. All right, that wraps up card number 2. Let's move on to number 3. Same as card number 2, this one needed some extra color added. Pretty much the same process as the other cards. I'm using something new to make a mark today. This fancy little tool is a brad from my scrapbook stash. I really like it because it has these little prongs, so it's easy to grip and it makes it easy to stamp with. And I'm using the mini clothespin again. So I'm wondering if any of you have been inspired to try mark making yet. I'd love to see what you come up with. I'm also wondering if you have discovered any non-traditional things to create your mark making with. Let me know in the comment section if you have. And on this card, I'm going to use the Darkroom Door stamp number medley to finish it up. All right, so that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, I'd appreciate you giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment. If you'd like to see more videos like this, then I'd like to encourage you to hit the subscribe button and the bell beside it. That way you'll get notifications when I post new videos. See you next time.